Hello. Welcome to Keeping You Wise by Keeping It Real, where we bring authentic and real conversations to fuel your soul that you can share with others. Welcome to our second episode where we will discuss how to get and stay motivated. Hello. My name is Paula Bell, and I am here with my phenomenal co-host, Chris Solomon.
Paula, you're just official. You got like the new the graphic. You sound good. Like I'm just trying to be like you one day. That's all I'm saying.
Look, it's because of you that I'm doing all this now. You be helping me out getting to this point, right? I mean, that's just how we do. Iron sharpens iron, right?
I appreciate
But before we jump in, let's put a couple of disclaimers out here, though. So I just want to put out here on this podcast, we are not therapists. We do not offer any type of medical advice. We are not trained, qualified, or able to diagnose or treat any form of mental illness or disorder. And just be prepared that some topics, depending on what we're talking about, because we're keeping it real, may be triggering. So it is okay if you have to bow out. Now, the purpose of this podcast is to have real and authentic conversation that provides wisdom to all. So please interact in the chat no matter where you are joining us from. I can see the chat. Now, this episode will be about 30 to 45 minutes long. These are really laid back, and we just want to have that open, honest, authentic conversation. And we will actually have a guest speaker that will be joining us today. But before I jump into that, how are you doing, Chris?
I'm good.
Treating you.
Paradise, best day of my life as usual. I was speaking to your comment when it comes to we want interaction from the crowd in the comments, in the chat. We're the type of pastors that like feedback from the congregation, you know?
Yes.
Amen. Every once in a while, there you go, pastor. We like those type of audience members, okay? So put your comments below, even if they are triggering, especially if they're triggering. At the end of the day, I think that our ability not to get offended and deal with people in a respectful and good manner when they have a difference of opinion is like a lost art these days. So keep it real and let's sharpen that saw and build that muscle again of being able to disagree agreeably.
All right now.
Good.
Amen.
Amen.
So Chris, I just had to throw that in there. So Chris, we got a special guest with us today. I'm excited about this one. I'm excited. So who is our special guest that's joining us for episode 2?
Okay. So I don't even know if I could say enough about this brother because he is something real special. So first off, Tamien Dysart is our guest today. He's in South Dakota. He's the co-founder and CEO of Think 3D Solutions. And prior to the Think 3D Solutions, which he started in 2016, he spent over 16 years in the financial industry and had an amazing reputation, building and sustaining high-performing teams, extremely great cultured teams, driving engagement and performance up and to the right steadily, while at the same time reducing attrition and the negative impacts of poor organizational culture. And that's on paper. I could also talk about how he's built million-dollar businesses. I could talk about how great of a father he is. I could talk about how great of a husband and partner he is. I could talk to the cows come home about him, but I'll just say that how he's affected me. Tamien probably is one of the most influential people personally I've ever experienced in my life. You have those David Goggin types, right? Where you see him doing ultra marathons, running 1,000,000 miles or however long ultra marathon is. In my mind, Tamien is a David Goggins ultra marathoner when it comes to your own personal life success, journey, culture, and everything that really embodies this question. How to get and stay motivated. So I am pleased to say that we do have Tamien on our podcast tonight. And you all are going to get a lot of wisdom because I can promise you that Tamien's going to keep it real.
Yes, yes. Welcome, T. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. That was
Amen.
so again, I got my champion shirt on so I can.
It is. There it is. I'm going to see you and Goggins duking it out one day, Tamien, and you're going to bomb on him, bro. I know he's a seal. I know he's a seal.
Carry the boats.
Yeah. David Goggins, my dude. That's that dude right there. And Tamien, you're right up there with him, in my opinion.
So, Tamien, let's kick this off a little bit. So, Chris did a phenomenal job bringing you in on your intro on all the things that you do, right? And all the people that you've helped and all of that. But in your mind, with all of your experience, what is motivation? And how does motivation drive our behaviors?
Really comes down to reasons, right? We've heard a couple of years ago, Simon Sinek obviously made popular, know your why, what's your why, those types of things. It's your reasons behind your behaviors. What motivated you, good or bad, right? What motivated you to pop off at that person? What motivated you to get up and go to the gym? What motivated you to climb the ladder and go after that next thing? And in a world where, people don't have enough, I would say, depth to their reasons, right? Everyone to say, I'm doing it for X, Y, Z. But it goes deeper than that. If there's no real why to that at a subconscious level, that's why you see it temporary, right? Motivation truly is temporary, but you still have to be tethered to what your motivation is, even to get your ass off the couch, right? You have to have those things that get you to start the momentum. Now, again, motivation isn't going to carry you forward by itself through all of it. So there's things that you have to do to kind of build systems and habits, as I'm sure we'll probably talk about today a little bit. But motivation is your reasons. And so I really just challenge folks, again, get intimate with your reasons. Go deep with your reasons. If you say you're doing it for your kids, problem for most of us is our kids are probably eating okay, right? So it's not like it's life or death, but truly, like, what are you trying to teach them, and how are you living an example for other people? So really, motivation for me is your reasons, and it drives your behaviors, both good and bad.
I would have to agree. I'm sorry, Chris. I think you were about to say something right then and there, but I would have to agree that the one thing you said that I think is really important is the why. And I don't think a lot of people spend time to think about the why. And so how do you define your why? How do you go about that? How do people go about identifying their why?
For me, identifying your why is the thing. So here's the question I ask people, like, what's your why? And they'll tell you it, right? Then I challenge them, why isn't that great enough? Well, what do you mean? Do you ever procrastinate? Well, yeah, I procrastinate. We all procrastinate. Well, okay. When you procrastinate, why wasn't your why great enough to get you not to procrastinate? Is it tapped in, right? You talk about David Goggins. Again, you talk about this beast like that. He's the one I have a saying, F your feelings.
Yep.
Right. And in the moment when your feelings are fleeting, if you rely just on that, it's the thing that the real why is that thing that can get you to overcome that. I always, one of my sayings is success lies on the other side of I don't feel like it. And it's being able to peek over the wall, right? You've probably all heard that saying, if you throw your heart over the wall, your body will follow. Well, it's being able to peek up over the wall to see, okay, what's over there? And when you can envision, what would your life look like if you followed through on doing a thing? What would your kid's life or your legacy look like if you truly lived as an example? It's the thing that you're living beyond just the temporary, just the moment. And so I heard a gentleman at one point, if you really want to get to the depth of your why, ask why that thing like 7 times. Why that? And you start to get through some of the surface and you get down to the core of it. Like, maybe you're really motivated because when you were growing up, you were picked on in XYZ, or truly you wanted to provide a better life for your kids because at a subconscious level, your childhood really sucks, right? And you can't just leave it surface level, my kids. Well, why that? And so the depth of a why is challenging the layers of it. And again, if that's not the thing, when you're in those tough moments, when you don't feel like it, when you're in a mood, when you're feeling lazy, when you don't want to get up on that cold winter day, you got to challenge your why.
I love that. I'll say, Tamien, one of the things that I really love that you said up front is that motivation will get you off the couch, but it won't necessarily get you in the Bugatti, right? Like, because it's fleeting. Like, motivation is like the reason why you got up, but it's not going to sustain you. And I found that to be true for me as well. Essentially, like, motivation in my mind are like external factors, whereas like what inspires you and what keeps you sustained and going is something like an internal fire, right? Like, I liken it to, you're at a Tony Robbins event and you're motivated to walk across that coals because them coals are hot and you're feeling inspired and you want to get off them coals, so you do it. Or on the flip side, a fire is lit in your heart and you're inspired to do something. I had a boss who was at the Boston Marathon when it got bombed, and he was barely out of the blast radius and got to see the carnage and all this terrible things that happened. And he went home and watched the news because he was right there, and he was shook up, and he started hearing this Boston strong, Boston strong, Boston strong. And he felt for that Boston strong. He felt like he was there, even though he wasn't from Boston. It was just a trip. So he started running, and it was hard and it sucked, but he felt inspired to do it because he wanted to be Boston strong. And long story short, years later, he ran that Boston Marathon. And ever since, he's been a runner because something was lit inside of him. He was inspired. And essentially, it's different. So, like, how do you light that fire? Like, how do you take the motivation to get off the couch to the fire that's lit in your heart to like sustain you to get through that 27 miles or into the life that you've always dreamed, or what have you? Any tips?
I've heard, I'm not a runner, so I can't say from experience, but I've heard people who run marathons, they talk about the runner's block, right? That 18, 19, 20th mile. There's something there that just like your body is just screaming at you, and it's like, it hurts because, again, you go back to, David Goggins. What's great about the Goggins of the world is they're pushing, they say that somewhere in the neighborhood of like when your brain tells you to quit, you probably only are about 40% of the way there of what you could do, right? And knowing that, like, our brains aren't designed for success. It's designed for survival. And at the core of survival, it wants comfort, right? 20,000 years ago, if you were uncomfortable, it probably meant you could die, right? A danger out there. And so knowing that in this 200,000-year-old brain that we have that was passed down generation to generation to generation, our brains don't care about our success. And so therefore, a lot of this is hacking. How do you hack this system, this computer in your head? And so tapping into your why, again, I would challenge you for folks to say, again, how do you find that thing? You got to try. A lot of people just sit back and I did it for years, try to read the books, try to get the motivation. I try to follow other people's paths to those things. A lot of this goes back to, for me, is purpose. I read a study somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90% of people, when they reach retirement, don't know what their purpose is. And that's a sad thing. That's haunting. That's scary. Weird. That's a haunting thing, right? If you think, 50 to 75% of our waking hours is spent at work, going to work, thinking about work, decompressing from work, all these things, right? The majority of your waking hours is around work. And then if you work from 18 to retirement of 67, national expectancy of 78, that's 81% of our adult years working. For what?
Right.
And this is the side of it I really challenge folks to get grim with it to a degree. We've heard the like write your own obituary, all those type of things. For me, my haunting moment is I think back to visiting my grandfather when he was in a retirement home. And I'll never forget the smell. And it wasn't just adult diapers. That was part of it. It wasn't just the bad cafeteria food. It was the smell of hopelessness. Damn. It was the smell of regret. I saw people getting wheeled out into the hallway, and that was their day. They was just gonna exist. And what's interesting about that, and I've heard this especially for those who were kids. You hear a lot of guys say this: "I die for my kids. I die for my kids." That's noble. I die for my family. That's noble. But odds are you ain't ever gonna get called on it. 99.99% of the time, you're never going to say, like, someone walks up on you like, "Hey, you were the kids," right? Where you literally have to die. The courageous thing is, will you live for your kids? And that the part is when you're saying, what are you teaching others? One of my mantras is, I teach through the clarity of my example. And so at the end of the day, finding your purpose, some way, shape, or form, keep trying. I don't care if you don't find it until 50, 60. But here's what I promise people in that. And it's simple. This is what I always coach people on. Like with people, I don't know what my purpose is. Simple question. If at the end of your life, you're on your deathbed and you can look back and you could say confidently, I made a positive, like a significant positive impact on just 3 people's lives. Is that enough to say that your life has purpose? Yes, you're a multiplier. One person comes through this life and impacts 3 people, that you're a multiplier. And that's just 3 people. You could do that the next month if you really were intentional about it. So if you have a baseline of how I can impact other people, that's what purpose is. You're not here just to be selfish. You're here to inspire you. I love that word inspiration. I had the quote in Latin on my desk over here, and it's to breathe into. So just by breathing life into others is a huge why. And part of that is what makes you come alive, because if you're not truly alive, you're just existing. And most people, be clear, most people are going through their weeks existing, not living. Living is energy.
So you said something. So, you're hitting me right where it's at, right? Being a life purpose coach. This is what I talk to people about all the time. And what I find very interesting is a lot of the people that I do coach, they are older than me. And they've just been doing the, normal 9 to 5. They're trying to make money. They're trying to pay their bills. They're trying to live. And then they get to a point in their life where they're getting ready to get close to that retirement age. And they're like, well, what am I going to do after I don't have to work 9 to 5 all the time? Right. What am I going to do that's fulfilling? And it'd be great if you could figure that out prior to you getting to that point, if you could actually work in your purpose, because there's so many people who go into the grave with their purpose. We never got to experience it. And one of the things that I tell people too is, and I think I've said this before to you, Chris, is there are people who are relying on you to fulfill their purpose so they can ultimately fulfill theirs.
Yeah.
Right? They need what you got to be able to do what they need to do. Now, that does not mean they can't do what they've been called to do or what they've been destined to do, because there's other ways to do things, right? But think about that, though. If you think about how much people are relying potentially on you to walk in your purpose and to do your purpose, that's enough of a motivation for me, even in those times when I feel like I want to procrastinate, because I think we all go through that. There's times where we all, with stuff we're supposed to do and we don't do it, right? But what is that thing that's driving you? And that's why motivation is so important. And look, we are already in February, and some people made resolutions in January. This is why I don't do resolutions. But some people made resolutions in January and they are already messed up. And it's only in February. We got 10 more months to go, right? We got a long way to go, and you already lacking motivation, right? So it goes deeper than just saying it, right? It's deeper than just saying it. And so once you identify that why, Tamien, right? So now we've got our why, and we feel that we've got our why. What do you do with it? How does that why drive you, that when life throws curveballs at you, when life happens, to keep you going despite all of that?
It's not about you. I actually, one of my favorite players was Kobe Bryant. And obviously he talked about being in the public eye, and he kept real in perspective. Like he airballs, this or missed a winning shot. He's like, get over yourself. Like you're not that important, by way of 1 out of 8 billion people. Right. So when it goes beyond you, and that's the part about it, like, for most people, should you be enough to be motivated and inspired? Yeah, perhaps. But how's that worked out? How many times have you lied to yourself over your lifetime? How many times have you let yourself down over a lifetime, or disappointed yourself over a lifetime? All those different things. Like, what's one more time? It's just me. I'm gonna sleep in. So when you do it just for yourself, it's easy to get one more time. When you do it for somebody else, because again, if someone says, we will go through hoops. Not if you're a person of character and integrity, right? You will keep your word. If you're a person of your word, if I said I'm going to do the thing, I'm going to do the thing, right? And so when you tap in, I always even tell people, don't just like create the vision board and create the things in the list. Tell the people, tell them. I told my mother, I said, Mom, again, I got to semi-retire my mom a couple years ago. And I'm like, she almost done. I'm like, you done. I'm about to, I'm telling her that. And that's my motivation to see, 2 summers ago, or it was last summer, she got to take the whole summer off. So she got a taste of retirement. And again, she's a busybody, so I didn't think she was going to do it, but she loved it. And again, like that, motivation, boom, that's gonna get me up when I don't feel like, again, F your feelings.
Right.
And that's the part of like, if it was really life or death, right, you would do the thing. And that's the part we have to really kind of resonate with. Like, if that why, well, it was just one morning, it's XYZ. That's the average. That's a loser mentality, right? The people that know that the power of momentum, right? If you miss that one, it's like when you're trying to quit smoking or try to quit an addiction, right? It's, oh, just one. It's the same thing. And here's what's key about this. We have to get real honest with ourselves. Every time that you don't follow through on something that you said you're going to do, what you're really doing at a deeper level is you're practicing failure.
Wow.
Say it out loud. You are practicing failure. And again, at the end of the day, your body falls into whatever groove or patterns the easiest to get to. And so if you have a lifetime, which most of us do, of practicing failure, micro, macro, and various levels, what's one more time? That's why it's so easy. And so it was so hard for so many people to start a new habit, because how many times have you started and stopped? And so you are so familiar with failure. It's just easy. Doesn't matter what the new goal is, doesn't know what the next thing is, if it's weight, career, XYZ, we are so used to practicing failure in society that one time matters. And one of the things that I do, I have this simple, everything starts with a thought, right? So again, the power of your thoughts matter. And even if you say out loud, just start saying, I'm the type of person who, or that list. I'm the type of person that wakes up on time every single day. I'm the type of person that shows up for himself. Even if you're not actually doing it, by just saying it, you're starting to create the wiring and seeing yourself in that picture of the movie. So then when you go to get up, you've already at least created some kind of a neural pathway where it starts to then reinforce, because that's all habits are. That's everything is. It's a neural pathway that's connected. This one goes to this one on a regular basis, but most of us have patterns of failure. So getting into it, tapping into it, is go beyond yourself and own the moment. Like, one time, there's no more one time. Stop doing one times.
I could attest to that, Tamien. That really hit me. Well, you're practicing failure every time you do something you say you weren't going to do. Because I personally, to be vulnerable with you all in the audience, I struggled with the addiction of quitting smoking cigarettes. And it was the hardest thing in the world. And it was crazy because every time I lit up, I told myself, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to quit. This is my last one. And then every time I sparked up, it was like, oh man, just one more, to your point. But I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to quit. And then in the back of my head, that little voice starts saying, yeah, just like you were going to quit last time, right? And eventually that voice got so loud that every single thing that I told myself I was going to do followed up with that voice. Man, I'm going to wake up tomorrow early and hit the gym. Just like you're going to stop smoking cigarettes, right? Sure, bro. You know what? I'm going to start eating healthy. Just like you're going to quit them cigarettes. I'm going to start being this. I'm going to start doing that. And it's like I had practiced that failure, that saying I'm going to do something good, but not doing it so often. Doing something good was literally impossible for me to do. So I had to stop the thing. I had to stop practicing failure. I had to go through that struggle, that pain. It was one of the hardest things in the whole world that I had to do. I had to rewire my brain before I could do anything else. Like, we talk about motivation. We talk about success. We talk about goals. We talk about New Year's resolutions. I couldn't do none of that until I stopped failure, to your point, Tamien. So that was powerful for me. Any advice for the people that are in the hole like I was, that had practiced failure so often that they just embodied a failure? Is I'm the type of person mantras?
Start where you're at. I mean, basics of, like, here's one of the reasons, one of the top 5 reasons most people don't hit their goals is it's too far, right? Okay. It's too far to believe. And so it's like, you set this ambitious goals and XYZ. Start simple, like, because again, I always tell people, again, start with measuring or counting your wins every day, like truly writing down your wins. In my book, there's no such thing as a small win. There's big wins for sure. I got a raise, going on vacation, blah, blah, blah. But any action you did to show up for yourself, that's a motive. That's momentum, right? And the power of momentum is huge. So if you said, like, my goal this week is just to work out twice. Start where you're at. But if I could start anywhere with anybody, I would probably say, most of us have heard this, right? Starts with your morning.
Mhm.
In the morning, win the day. Tim Ferriss says that, right? You study out the most successful people on the planet, almost all of them get up before the sun rises, right? And this is one, again, I'm one, please believe me, and sleep, man, me and that snooze button, we was like this.
Me
But
too.
I had to break up with that relationship, man, because that wasn't a good relationship to have in full scale. And so when you win your morning, and in that, when I say win your morning, I always give this analogy, right? Is think about a fighter pilot. A fighter pilot has a checklist of what they need to do before they take off and before they land the plane. Why is that important? Because literally their life is on the line. If they miss one critical step, something can go wrong in the takeoff or landing, and their life is over.
Yep.
Having a checklist for your day, for your life, how you start your day and how you finish your day, is so important, because that's the real reason of if you are going to live truly or just exist. Think about how many people get up out of bed just in time to get on clothes and barely brush their teeth and barely get to work. And then what they're doing is they're starting in a pattern that they're used to, right? Average person has 60,000 thoughts a day. About 90-some percent, 91% or so of those thoughts are about the same as they were yesterday. So if you think about the same way you thought yesterday, what's the likelihood of your tomorrows? How you interrupt that pattern is how you start your day. I ask people all the time, how many people wake up saying to themselves out loud, man, today, man, it's going to be average. Nobody says it. But then I ask the question, I say, okay, I get it. I'm joking, but serious. How many of you though woke up and said, yo, today I'm going to be excellent. I'm going to be phenomenal today. Hardly anyone raises their hands.
Yes.
So the simplicity of, if you didn't make a decision to be excellent today, you have two chances of being excellent: slim and none.
Yep.
So setting your mind, that's why I always say, like, mindset is one word, is just a thing, but to set something is a verb. So again, when you wake up every day, are you setting your mind for success? Are you setting your day up for success? What are the key things that you need to do to set yourself up for success just that day? Don't worry about next week, because it's not even 24 hours, right? You slept 6 to 8 hours. So all you're really saying is, these next 16 to 18 hours, how do I set myself up for success? And just lay out that plan, execute that plan, rinse and repeat. Start where you can to get some momentum. Once you get momentum, like, okay, I am the type of person that can do that. All right, what else can I do? Start to build on top of that.
Wow. So, T, I got a question for you. So, we talk about motivation. You're giving us some great gems here, right? But I've also had the opportunity to work with you. So I've heard some of these before, and I've seen you put it in action. And I'm totally 100% in agreement with you. Your morning sets up your day, positive affirmations, speaking that positive, bringing it forth, speaking those words into life. But all of us, all three of us, actually met in the same corporate environment. That's how we met, right? So that's how we all became tight. Here's the question: how do you stay motivated, for those who might be watching, who is in this situation right now? How do you stay motivated in a toxic work environment?
That's a good one. That holds so many people back.
Yeah.
Here's one thing we talk about oftentimes, right? Is in a world of talking about personal responsibility, when people talk about personal responsibility, who are they typically talking about? Somebody else. They didn't take, they hold them accountable. They didn't make, I'll be back after lunch, right? And in this space of, so we do this exercise in our business. We in a room with a business, we say, okay, we get out through the 3M sheets, and we have people say, give me all the words or phrases that describe a toxic culture. So they go through things like negativity, gossip, poor leadership, all that stuff. Then what are the characteristic traits of a healthy culture, right? Vision, teamwork, positive fun, all these different things, right? And what's interesting about that is, we've all heard that saying, the grass is greener on the other side. You know, that not to be true most of the time. The grass is greener where you water it.
Yep.
And when people describe the characteristic traits of a healthy culture, 80+% of the things that make that list is things that anybody in the organization can do, right? contribute to being a better teammate, to being a better communicator, to bringing positivity, to having more fun and laughter, whatever it is, right? And so it's personal responsibility, because if we don't take responsibility, when you go back to what I said earlier, that 50 to 75% of your waking hours is spent around work, right? If you absolve yourself of personal responsibility, you're giving other people control over your happiness, because if in a toxic work environment is bad, how happy should you expect your life to be, right? And so if you absolve yourself of personal responsibility and happiness, how happy should you expect to be? Now, going back to your point, Paula, is like, is it easy? Of course not. But is it worth it? This is your life we're talking about. And so number one, lock in. Lock in. I use this acronym, leadership IOU. Lead inward, lead out, then lead up. So this is, what can you do? Back to that list. If you could say, all right, these next 3 to 6 months, I'm going to lock in on just being, I'm going to come in with positive energy and give more compliments to people. That's what I can control, right? Boom. Then to lead out, that's the influence, right? So I'm going to grab a friend of mine. So everyone's got at least a person in a work environment. Say, yo, we know this is toxic, but let's lock arms and let's commit to each other. Like, this, get our own bubble and say, this is what we're going to commit to. Give it 6 months. When you give it that 6 months to say, here's what I've done, and here's what we've done, and here's the changes. Now bring that to your leadership. If you bring that to your leadership and you say, like, again, I understand part of the equation of this thing called life. We're going to spend a majority of our waking hours around work. I get that. That's just part of the equation. Cool. But here's what we've been doing to try to make it better. We need your help, though. And if they're like, that's cool, get back to work, how much do they really care about?
Exactly.
And how long do you stay in any relationship when they genuinely, then basically what they're saying is, I don't care about your life.
Exactly.
How long do you
exactly
stay? Do what you can control, influence those few people, start there, give it some time. Then if the leadership's not bought in to help make it better, bounce. You got to find somewhere else.
See, this is why I like you, bro. That's why I hang out with you, man. Leadership IOU. That's another gem that I've never heard. Lead inward, outward, and then up. That's huge.
Right.
I'll also say, to your point, and this goes for both of you, I feel like sometimes we get ourselves in these environments that affect us, but we give ourselves an excuse to allow that affecting us to bleed over into parts of our lives that we have complete control over, right? Like, you could choose your friends, you could choose your associates, you could choose what you do on the 8 hours when you're not. And how many of us leave the bad environment and be like, oh, it was just a tough job, tough day today. I'm just going to sit on my butt and watch some Netflix and get ready for the pain and torture tomorrow, right? So your circle, like,
let me add this real quick, because people absolve themselves. I can't. What can I do? Again, well, what did you do?
Exactly.
Because you can't do everything, but you can always do something.
Yep.
If you can't articulate that thing that you did, you're part of the problem.
And then you ain't even do nothing, right? It's the carrot or the coffee example, right? Like, you put a carrot in a pot of boiling water and the carrot gets all soft and mushy and jacked up. You put coffee in the same pot of boiling water, it turns the water into coffee. And now it's something better. Mm-hmm. So you could put two people in the same environment and get two totally different results from that environment. So what are you, carrot? You gonna get soft, or you coffee? You're gonna change the environment, making it better. And I like that leadership IOU, man. That's a hit.
In addition to that, let's keep it real too. A lot of times, especially if you're in a leadership role, which all of us have been in, we tend to stay in a toxic environment because we want to protect the team. We want to be there for the team. But that's a disservice to the team if you really think about it, because all you're doing is you're just laboring something that's inevitably going to happen. So why make the team go through that? Why make yourself go through that? At some point, I like it. You have to take personal responsibility. You literally need to bounce. I've had to make that decision. Tamien, you made that decision. Chris, you made that decision. We were all leadership positions when we decided to pivot, when we decided it's time for us to move from where we're at, because we know what our purpose is. And I really think that was the key. When you begin to realize what your purpose is, when you really begin to realize the impact and what you were destined to do or are destined to do, that shifts the whole way you walk in this world. Because a lot of people will say, Well, you work. I hear this all the time. People say to me, you work too much. You always doing something. What you don't understand is what I'm doing, it doesn't feel like work to me. I am walking in my purpose. I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If that means I got to push a 16-hour day because I know on the other side of that 16, I'm going to be producing something that is going to impact multiple people around the globe in a positive way to help them now realize their potential, to help them realize their purpose and their future, why wouldn't I do it? That's
Amen,
the stuff
Pastor.
that gives me fuel and motivates me, right? So a lot of times we take on other people's burdens and other people's, and we can't do that. You've got to let go. I like how to say, let go and let God. You got to let go. You have to let it go, and you got to walk into what you've been destined and called to do. And I also love how you brought in, because I'm really huge on this too, accountability. You got to find the right tribe, because not everybody's for you.
Yeah.
Facts.
And you've got to know that. You got to find the right people to be around you who are going to be there to motivate and encourage you and really have your back. Understand what their motivation is. What's your motive? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Right? You got to make sure you got those right people, because I've had people who I thought had my back and they stabbed me in it just as quick because the motivation wasn't there. So you got to be careful with that too. But I love what you're saying. I love the whole lead inward, lead outward, lead upward. I'm going to use that. I love that. That's a great thing.
And
that's
Paula,
a great thing.
To your point, when it comes to the tribe you surround yourself with, even if you got people that aren't waiting to just stab you in the back because they're scandalous, if you're not inspecting the type of character quality that you're around, you know, I'll be a nerd real quick and say, like Dr. Spock said, constant exposure will always result in some form of contamination. If you hang around the dope boys long enough, you're going to do dope. You hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. You hang around millionaires long enough, you're going to make some money. So you got to be careful about the people that you hang around with, even if they do have your best interest in mind. I've had to give up people that I love, that I die for, that would die for me, because I knew that if I continued hanging out around in that environment, I was always going to be contaminated by the stuff that just wasn't going to serve me. It wasn't going to help me actualize my potential. So I had to bounce. Sometimes you got to bounce, whether it be on that addiction, whether it be from the job, whether it be from the circle. Sometimes you got to bounce, and bouncing a lot of the time is the hardest part.
Well, I think that's an important distinction. Be clear on that. In my life, I've never left anyone behind. They chose to stay. I love them. I want you to come. Come on. This is better over here. Again, we were there together. I know what that's like. It's better over here, right? These different things. Like it feels good over here. I want people to experience it. And that's again, I go back to the greatest gift you can give the world is the best version of you.
Yeah.
And so in that, I've never, again, people that like, they get access. We have a Leaders Tomorrow program in the community. Someone hit me up. They're like, yo, how I go about getting a meeting with you? Ask. If you want it, I got parts for days. I love bringing people up with me. That's why I do it, right? But the ones that's like sucking their teeth and that you choosing this, right? I don't got time for that. I didn't leave you behind. I didn't bounce from you. I bounced up and I had hand back. Nope, I ain't going back down there. Here's the blueprint.
Yeah.
So they choose to stay. That's on them. I love you. Always going to be here for you, but I can't engage in those type of activities because you know what those things lead to. So
love it. Tamien, you said something. You said the best thing that you can give the world is the best version of you. And I found, and I feel like almost my entire adult life before the aha moments, right? I was trying to like search for this thing, listening to podcasts like this, trying to find like the word or like inspiring, you know, quote or the get rich quick or the vibration book that I can do to like get the stuff to manifest in my life, all the BS that didn't work, right? And I finally found the only way to true success and fulfillment is like just becoming a better version of me. Like looking that skeleton in the closet and cleaning it out, looking that reflection in the mirror and working on it. And I feel like you, just knowing you and having been around and worked with you for so long, have like such a beautiful like system for this self-development, like finding the best version of yourself. Mm-hmm. And I know you have a quote, and I want you to say it because you articulate it way more beautifully than I could. but it's about self-discovery. It's about success, and it's about the system defined that. So can you talk a little bit about that?
For me, again, I was same boat, right? I read the books, went to the seminars, and what I found in that was what happened for most people, they develop these systems, and that's how they became successful. So what they're saying to you is, if you do what I did, you will be successful. But I'm not you. I didn't, take Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone is a 10x and intense and cold calls and all that. That's not my personality, right? There's some people that can align with that. So when I tried to do those things, I wasn't my authentic self. And so what I developed was this process called the author of my life. And the part about it is customization. Because the real secret of success in life is only found through self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about discovering who you are? That's the problem. That's the golden ticket, right? And the pathway of that's not a secret. It's a system. And so I talk about to the people again, mindset, personal inventory, tracking days, all these different things that the common thread amongst everything that I do in whether it's personal coaching and in business is it's foundational in a way of you having to discover yourself through these questions, through these processes. It's not from what I gave you. I give you a system, a process to discover what do you want? What is the ideal start to your day? All these different things that you start to extract from within, because if it doesn't come from within, right, you can chase the money, you can chase the things externally. Again, that's why one thing for most people, I ask this question all the time, how many people have a custom and personal definition of what success means to them?
Yeah.
Most people have no idea what success is to them. So by default, well, first of all, if you don't know what success is to you, will you ever be successful? The answer is clearly no. You can't hit a destination that's not defined. Secondarily, then, if you don't have your own definition of success, most of the world defines success by money, power, fame, those type of things. But yet we can turn on E-News right now and you see people with money, power, and fame who don't seem to be happy, which if you're not happy, that ain't a success to me, right? Who seem to be lying to themselves. They're missing confidence, right? Confidence and happiness is built by doing the work internally, because you cannot get it wrong being the authentic version of you. And so whatever you do, you have to go down this journey of this self-discovery. Who are you really? And when you start to identify that, and then you can concretely say, I'm an ongoing better version of myself every 3 months for the rest of my life. That's how you truly carve out this customized life for you, which starts to define true success, which gives you happiness, gives you confidence, and all the things that makes you live versus simply exist.
See, there's something you said there that I need to talk about right quick. And it was all about self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And as a life coach, this is something I take individuals on a journey on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the area that's the most resistant. People don't want to do self-reflection or self-introspection because number one, it's hard.
Yep.
Number two, it takes time.
It does.
Number three, it's going to bring up stuff you probably don't like about yourself. Number four, people don't want to do the work to change.
Yeah.
So let's just keep it real. Okay, so that's really what you're dealing with. But yet and still, you want all of the things that you want outside of doing that work. If you can't work on yourself, how on earth are you telling other people what they need to do? If you claim you're an expert in something, but you can't even do what you're preaching, how on earth do you expect other people to follow you, right? It all does begin, and I do a presentation on this too. It all begins with you. Before you can lead others, you got to know how to lead yourself. And somebody actually challenged me at a conference on that. Well, what does that mean? That doesn't even make sense. And I said, herein lies the problem. Herein lies the problem. And herein lies why we have leaders out here that shouldn't be leaders. Because if you cannot lead yourself, if you cannot practice what you preach, I personally don't want you leading me. Right? Yeah, I'm not going to follow you. I need to see that you actually, if you don't even practice what you preach, why am I going to believe it?
Yeah.
That's self-reflection and self-discovery, no matter how hard it is, how painful it is, how when you have to look at yourself. Michael Jackson said it best. You know, that song, Man in the Mirror. Look at yourself. Because there's going to be some things you're not going to like. Yeah. But it's okay. That doesn't mean you can't fix it. That's how you become the best version of you, right? So I love that. Love that.
I always say, we say that, in my opinion, the greatest leadership challenge that we've ever had, in the past, at current, is the inability to effectively lead ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The best leaders were able to lead themselves. Again, they had flaws, but they were working on them. They were aware of them, right? So when you can't lead, your point, Paula nailed it. Like if you don't learn how to lead yourself, again, how are you going to lead others, right?
Mhm.
You're leading to this fake place, right? And that's where we've gotten to, where in social media people see all this fallacies, and that's why we have so much anxiety, depression, because people are trying to do all these things externally. Self-discovery.
Yeah. I also feel like you could do all the things that others see on the outside as good and as productive, and you might even have all of the makings and manifestations of success. I'll give you guys a personal experience that I dealt with. And Tamien, I told you this not too long ago, but one of the wins that I have is yesterday, I crushed Valentine's Day. I crushed it. I made sure my wife got flowers early. She got every chocolate in the book. I made sure that she knew I loved her. I did everything that I could. And the reason I did that is because I had to take a serious look at what success was for me. Because rewind a year ago, I was doing all the things that some folks might be watching this podcast. Well, how do I get why? So I can make some money, right? So I can ball hard, maybe get a promotion, get some more power, get all these things that people say that they want. And I'll be honest with you, I was driving a Tesla. I make a ton of money. And I found myself driving to Walgreens at 11:30 at night because I forgot it was Valentine's Day. I was working so hard, so many long hours to hope I can get some perfume for my wife. So it's like I didn't drop the ball. And as a grown man, I started bawling my eyes out in that beautiful Tesla and called my dad and told on myself because I felt ashamed. And he asked me, he said, son, you got to ask yourself, is this your definition of success? If you got into a car accident right now in that beautiful car or that beautiful house lit on fire tonight and it burned 99% of your body, is your job or is the thing that you're doing going to be the one that sustains you? Is your manager going to come over and wipe your butt when you're paralyzed? No. That beautiful wife of yours is. That wonderful son's going to call you daddy and love you. So maybe you should define what success means to you and start putting in just as much work towards that as you have towards all this money, power, and the like. So I can attest, if you don't do that work of self-discovery, you're going to get to that place where you think that you got it. And like our boy Robin Williams.
Yeah, facts.
So
Wow.
Let me ask you this, T. I feel like we said a lot, and I want to make sure that whomever's watching this can start small, because one of the things that you talk about a lot is momentum, right? You talked about it here. It's the small wins, because there are no small wins. It's just wins, and the wins pick up momentum, and all of a sudden you got a avalanche of just everything's working out for you. And you talked about the first thing that you would do is rule the morning. And I can tell you, I'm not a morning person either. You all know that story, right? It's I think it's a Native American proverb where they say, in each person, there's a wolf, a good wolf that's kind and disciplined, and a bad wolf that's evil and lazy. And then the young man asks his grandpa, which one wins, grandpa? The one that you feed. Well, my bad wolf's name is Nibbles. And this Nibbles comes looking for food immediately when my alarm clock goes off. And if I hit that snooze, I throw him some snacks. And he is just on me all day. And the bad wolf loses. So I know how important the morning routine is. But for you, what's like one or two things that you can give somebody who may be at a complete stop of their own personal momentum of wins and success that they can do in the morning or wherever, where they can get that? So then they have that motivation and inspiration, maybe to reach out to you or a Paula to get some coaching to get to the next level, etc. Any tips there?
I'll give you two things. One, it's simple by the idea, but it's deep. Do a personal inventory. I challenge folks. So in my coaching, I have these 8 pillars in health, career, but just for anybody, just list off all the major pillars of your life: career, finance, spirituality, whatever it is for you.
I got you.
And then ask yourself the simple question, like, what would it take to be at a 10 in these areas? And so you start to unpack all the things. For most people, out of your 60,000 thoughts, when I ask this question, how many people can name more than 5 people in their sphere that are living their best life? They can't. Most people aren't living their best life because it's not defined. Once you get those things out of your head onto paper, now, again, as I always coach, you're going to grab 2. What is 2 things you can move forward over these next 90 days? Because the beauty in 90 days is any month can get away from you, but 3 months is 2,160 hours. That's a lot of time to excuse that you can't move the needle on 2 things, whether that's drinking 120 ounces of water a day, or going out on a date night twice a month with your spouse, whatever, something that would begin to move it forward. That gives you the progress where you could confidently say for the rest of your life, today is better than it was 3 months ago. If you grab 2 things every quarter, that's momentum. If you could say that, then what kind of life are you building, right? I was saying that your life and your success will be defined by the narrative you choose to tell yourself. That you're writing your story, you are writing a book. We're all writing a book, right? And so what does your book look like? These are the chapters in your story. The second one I will give people is lean into relationships. I'm reading this book right now called A Good Life. It's the basis of that 84+ year study at Harvard on happiness. Out of all the things that people chase after, money, career, XYZ, all the things, relationships is what it comes down to. When they really measure this out, they got people. John F. Kennedy was a part of that study. Like, there's all these people that were a part of this massive study. The number one thing it came down to was relationships. And so when you unpack people's lives, you said something earlier, Paula, well, life gonna happen. Yeah, life is gonna happen. What was interesting is the people that were the happiest versus not happy, they had about the same number of life events happening, people dying, sicknesses, divorces, about the same number of things. The difference was the quality of their relationships, because it's who you go through life with. Stuff's going to happen. Relationships matter. When you look back at your life towards the end, a quality life is going to be made up of quality experiences and quality relationships. Lean into those relationships. If it starts with one, strengthen it. Relationships is what it is that makes life worth living.
Wow. So this was great. Thank you, Tamien, for joining us. Chris, I'll send it back over to you so that you can see how people can get in contact with Tamien.
Personal inventory. We got homework, right, T? Personal inventory. Health, personal relationships, professional relationships,
Career, finances,
spirituality, any of the big buckets you would find important in your life. Ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would a 10 look like? And write down the things that you may not necessarily be doing, and then choose 2 of those and work towards it. And then the second homework is lean into relationships. And I'll say this, I appreciate you 2. Like, thank you all for being in my life. I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for you. I wouldn't think like I think if it weren't for you. So I appreciate you all. Both of you guys have touched me in ways that I can never repay. So I just really appreciate you guys. I appreciate you. So when I get hit with one of these life events, like, let's hypothetically say, I lose my house. Like, T, I'm gonna need you to comp me, a couple $100,000, bro. Like, hook me up, T. It's the people you go through, because I know Tamien's good for it, Paula. Okay, he's balling. With that being said, T, how do people get a hold of you, man? Because I know they only got a snippet today, and I know. Oh man, look at this!
Damn, right there,
devil. Look at this handsome devil. So we're all the spots right here, right?
I would go. I mean, Instagram, my team runs that. I'm not. Again, I remove distractions. LinkedIn, Facebook, I'm on that. The email is right there. Hit me on the email. Whatever it is, hit me up. One of those 3 ways: email, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Awesome. Well, T, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. Paula, back to you.
Yeah, that's a wrap. This was a good session. I'm definitely going to take some of these notes, write up this summary synopsis, definitely add it on the YouTube channels, which brings me to our segue. Please go ahead and follow us on YouTube, especially if you have enjoyed this episode. Thank you for engaging and listening. Hopefully we'll get more comments and questions going forward. But to keep the conversation going, even outside, if you were not able to join us live, but you are listening to this after we are live, please go ahead and subscribe to our channels. We have the Keeping You Wise by Keeping It Real YouTube channel. The BA Martial Artist is my channel, and your boy Solo is Chris's channel. You can also follow us on other social media if you want to keep up to speed on what we are doing as individuals. We are all three of us are entrepreneurs, and we do, well, a couple of us work a day job. Tamien is the one who really branched out and did the thing, but a couple of us still have another job as well. But we do a lot of coaching, consulting, and I just have to give a shout out. Chris was one of the ones who came up with this quote: for each one, reach one, teach one, right? But let me tell you something about Chris. This has been a 2-year process coming. Chris has been talking about doing this podcast for a while. And I'm the type of person who's like, stop talking.
Yeah,
Let's stop talking and let's start doing.
She's going
right?
to push you.
Yes,
While we're on Chris, I also would like to say that I am way more handsome, jacked, and super cool than it may seem on camera. I know the pictures don't really do it justice, but I just want to let you guys know I am also like a ninja with a smoke bomb. So you all can't find me anywhere except here. So if you want to see me, you come here. If not, hey, you got to find my phone number or something. And I'm pretty sure that they don't even make white pages no more. So you can catch me on the flip side or vicariously through one of these two, because I'm like a ninja. And pow! Hit a smoke bomb and disappear if I'm not on one of these. This right here, Paula. So thank you for this platform.
Yes, yes. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. We got homework. We got work to do. We're leveling up. Again, for each one, reach one, teach one. And we will catch you on the next Keeping You Wise by Keeping It Real podcast. Have a great one, everyone.